Welcome back to the Good Human Company podcast. I'm Matt Wheeler, and today I'm joined by Chip Webster. Chip is a respected leader and advisor who has spent decades working with CEOs, founders, and business leaders. In this episode, we're diving into three topics that are very important to every organization: building trust, creating a culture people want to be part of, and the realities of leadership during times of growth and change. Hi, it's Matt Wheeler, CEO of Thanks Crate, and we are on the Good Human podcast. And today I have an amazing guest with me, Chip Webster. Chip and I actually spent time with having lunch a few weeks back. And one of the things that I walked away from the conversation with Chip was right at the end, he told me that if every human being on the planet just did one thing to help another human, the world would change. And that really put weight on my back. And I said, what have I done today to help another person? And I left there, Chip, really thinking a lot about that. And you handed me your book, Unity and Service, which I'm only a part of the way into, but it does talk a lot about the character of who you are and what you care about. And I think you've spent your career really helping other people and caring about your community, caring about leadership impact. And I couldn't be any more excited than to have you as a guest today. I'm really interested in kind of your history and what you've worked on, and kind of how you may look at the market, the industry around the way companies treat individuals and things like that. But if you could, Chip, I spoke a lot for you, but if you could give a good introduction to the audience just so they have an idea of who you are and your background a little bit.
Sure. Well, I started out of college working for a large corporation called Sears. That working in the individual stores had a great culture, but after I moved into the headquarters, was promoted. You could see the cracks in the Sears towers, but I did see the cracks in the culture, and I was hired away, did a couple other jobs, and then ended up being entrepreneurial. Started an independent phone book publishing business, and that's when I really learned about teams and building teams and the responsibility I have as a leader to take care of the people that are in the team. And I merged my company with another company that didn't have the same culture. And I stumbled into this thing called Vistage, which is a large organization full of small organizations. Each Vistage group ranges in size from 10 to 15, maybe a few more people. They meet each month together and work on the business and leadership. Where are they? What are they doing? Where they want to go? And ultimately, you end up talking about everything because everything is related to everything. And as a chair, I met with each member for 2 hours in between meetings. So think about how many people you've had a 2-hour conversation with over 10, 15 years every month. You really get to know each other.
You do.
And that was a gift to me. And apparently I was pretty successful at it because they made me president of Vistage, Florida. And I got to see other chairs and how they operated. But I think the greatest gift for me was sitting in the room with 15 really high-end leaders, watching what they were doing and then how they helped each other see their, what I call their backswing or their blind spots. And that was the real gift.
Well, that's interesting because one of the things that, I've had the experience of being with some companies that I thought the leadership is really what took us there. And there were some people in the industry that I've worked for where it's like, you just get behind this individual and like, you believe in what they believe in and you just go for it. Right. And then there's been other jobs I've had where I just showed up to work and like they were okay people to work for, but there's kind of two different things there, right? With real leaders, where one is they can really get people to gravitate towards them and really get this momentum going. And then there's other leaders that are, some of them are good, some of them are bad, but you just kind of go to work. You've had decades of working around CEOs. So, I mean, is there something you've seen in that equation of what separates those individuals at all?
Well, I think first of all, when I was with one of my members fairly early on as a chair, he was building a company called Discount Auto Parts, which later we did a reverse triangle merger with Advanced Auto Parts and took them public because we were public, they weren't. And he said one time, well, first you build the team, then the team builds the business. And my background was, you have this mission, you have this vision, you have this thing you give to the customer, and that's what's more important than the people. And then I realized the only sustainable strategic advantage is people. So when the market changes, if you have the right people, they're going to adapt and help you adapt to meet the needs of the market. I think what happened at Sears was they were all kind of bureaucrats. I mean, there's some really great people. I had some great friends there, but you do the same thing over and over again. And if you're failing a little bit, you work even harder doing the same thing over again, which is what needs to be done. So I think that the great leaders see people as the key ingredient to their organization. And I think they're able to articulate why what they're doing is important for the community, for the nation, however you want to describe it. When I was in the independent phone book publishing business, we were competing with Bell South, and they just would come in and jam advertising down the business owner's throat and say, if you don't do this, blah, blah, blah. And we came in and said, tell me about your business. I don't know whether they can help you or not, but tell me what you're trying to accomplish, and maybe I can, maybe I can't help you. And we produced a much better product, and people in the markets where we were ended up using our book.
That's awesome. You're putting around, these are fairly large names in the market. So you've seen these larger organizations kind of mature and some of them didn't. Now, from your perspectives, I know you've done work doing consulting with other leaders. Do you think that the trust within these companies, especially some of the bigger ones, do you think it's actually getting stronger today, or is it getting weaker? Or do you have any perspective of where that is?
The answer is it depends. I think some it's getting weaker, some it's getting stronger, but it has to do with the leader and the culture. Remember, culture eats strategy every time. And so we have the right culture, you have the right leader, it's working. When you have somebody who is a financial person, who doesn't care about the company, doesn't care about the people, you know, people don't quit companies, they quit bosses and quit cultures. So I think that's a big deal. And the trust that you just mentioned is going on. The lack of trust is going on not only in companies, but throughout our country. I don't know if I mentioned this to you when we had lunch, but in 1964, 77% of the people in the United States thought that the government was going in the right direction, and they trusted the government. Last year, the last survey, as they do that every year, Pew, it was 17%. If you and I were running a company and we had that kind of result, we'd either be shot, run over, run out of town. That's failure, and that's failure of leadership. That's the big problem. So, yes, I'll go back to answer your question, hopefully, and that is, yeah, some companies are doing great and some companies aren't.
Do you think that there are certain patterns from leaders, good or bad, or maybe on either side, that you've seen repeat themselves over the years, kind of regardless of what industry they're in?
Yeah, I'll never forget, I was interviewing somebody to be in one of my groups, and he was second generation. It was a good-sized business. I think they're doing about 50 million locally, and I asked him, how did he get started, and blah, 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 and I said, "Well, tell me about your team." "Well, I do it all, I have 75 employees, but I'm the key factor." I was, "Oh, okay." I didn't let him in my group. It was all about him. He didn't get it. You're only as good as your worst person. And Jim Collins, said, get the right people on the bus and in the right seats. That's your job as a leader. And the job is to articulate where are we going and why it matters. And you're part of something bigger than yourself.
Do you think a lot of companies really underestimate the power of culture within the organization?
I think some do, yes. And then some really get it. But in general, I was interviewing another guy and I asked him about his culture. And he says, I've heard about culture. I've always wanted one of those. You have one, pal. It's not conscious and it's probably not healthy.
It's funny, when you do consulting, and Whitney and I, who's also one of the people in the background, we'll give a little shout out to Whitney right now for her support on this podcast. But, one of the things that we've seen in working in a consulting role is that culture does vary heavily from building to building. And I think that some of the leadership understands it more than others. And I think that what I've seen is, I've been with two companies that have gone IPO,
Mhm.
and it's pretty critical as a company grows to try to maintain that. Do you see a lot of companies start to lose their culture, their identity as they grow? Is it something that's common, or?
Size is a challenge. I can't remember the study. I can't quote the study, but I can remember the essence of the study. It was after you're in a building with about 200, 250 people. That's as many people's that can work in a community and join and get to know each other and know about people's kids. So some companies have made it a conscious effort to never let one of their offices get bigger than about 200, 250 people. And then they'll open up another office. So that culture in that group, depending on who's leading it, can be very positive. Back to my Sears experience, I would travel around the country and visit Sears stores. And you'd come in before the store opened. So you'd walk across the loading dock, halfway across the sales floor, and people were there working to get ready to open the store, go up the escalator. By the time I was at the top of the escalator, I knew what kind of manager I was going to meet in the corner office. And if they were dynamic and loved their people, everybody was there. They were happy to be there. They were working. If they didn't, they'd be kind of glum and, hi, how are you? And you'd go into the office and there would be the corner office. I don't want to say a jerk, but just somebody that didn't understand the only sustainable strategic advantage is people. Get out there and see the people. The other thing talking about what great leaders do, they go out and get to know their people. I don't know if you ever heard of the book, The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. It's a
No, but I am going to put a note on this one. The Great Game of Business.
Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. Jack took over a division of International Harvester that was struggling in Springfield, Missouri. And he went in there and was kind of feeling his way around and got to know the people. And one of the things he did was he got everybody together and taught them how to budget and do their own finances. So they understood finances at a very gut level, and then taught them where their role was on the P&L.
Mm.
So if I walked in, it was a diesel engine rebuilding company. So if you've ever done around that kind of business, it's really dirty. And it was amazing to me. I walked through and he knew everybody. And what was more interesting is that people would come to him that were very entrepreneurial and say, I've got this idea. What do you think, Jack? He'd say, okay. Instead of saying, no, you have to leave because you want to do something else, he'd seed that company and help them grow. And it's been a while since I saw Jack. He had like 33 companies that had spun off. And we went to visit a couple of them. And once again, he knew everybody. And they were very clear up on the wall was their financials, what's going on. And so your questions around trust, that kind of behavior. Can I trust you? A lot of CEOs go in the corner office and close the door. That was true with some of the companies I worked with. I won't name, and no, I got to see you. I got to trust you. I got to know when you say something, you're going to do it. I've got to know that you're willing to do whatever it takes to help me. One of the challenges that as you're well aware of, is what's happened with COVID. People are scattered all over the country now, and that's a cultural issue. And I think, one thing about your business, Thanks Crate, is really interesting way to connect and let people know that we appreciate you. I think it's part of a bigger cultural strategy.
One
But
little piece of the
it's a piece of it that can telling people you're important to me. Was it actions speak louder than words?
yes. And it's funny too, Chip, because as you describe that person who goes around and gets to know their employees, I'm a tech guy, right? So I look at our brains as like they're little processors, and everybody's processors are a little different. When you train
Mhm.
people for a living, you can evaluate that a little bit more uniquely than some people. And that's how I look at things. And I do see where sometimes it's not as natural for someone to think the way that that human did around people. But this is the kind of the concept behind the Good Human podcast too, is like when we're missing things as humans and we don't have all those leadership skills, they can still be worked on and applied, right? So they know that they don't do these things. It's just a
Well,
matter of programming yourself to do more in that direction, I think.
right. And being part of a peer group like Vistage helps because you're gonna talk about what's going on in the business. But this was not my experience. But I was talking to a chair. I think it was in California. One of my good buddies had a member who was just a complete brainiac, like an Einstein, but he was horrible with people. And the group got him to hire a COO who was, Mr. Personality and Mr. Let's all have a group hug. And so the deal was, CEO, you stay in your corner office and don't come out. You know, I'm going to go and build the team. And they did it successfully. So if you know that that's a blind spot, invest the money.
Mhm.
to build your culture. They used to say, Vince Lombardi used to say, find out where your weakness is and work on it till it becomes a strength. No, find out what your strength is and work on it till your weaknesses become irrelevant. And find somebody who can play that role that you can't play. I'm horrible with details. I had to have an executive assistant that took care of the details. I got stuff done at a pretty high level, but not, you know,
I think that's the self-awareness part, and, I think we both work on that as much as we can, and, part of the reason I joined Thanks Crate is I had somebody in my life at one point that was so thoughtful, like, we would go on trips as families together, and when we would land, she would have something meaningful, like, she would have my wife's favorite drink or her favorite thing, and, like, weeks before she thought about, like, when we got to this place hours away, what would that experience be like for every individual that flew out or drove out or did
Mhm.
whatever? And when we started building out Thanks Trade, I said, I'm not wired that way. I think I'm a good human and I think about people often. But to that level of detail, I can't get there. So the idea behind Thanks Trade was like, hey, I can probably automate enough things that makes me seem a little more like Sandy than I
Mhm.
am today. But I'll never be her. But at the same time, how can we put some things in place? But it's more of like understanding that you have this gap and that you're willing to work on it too, I think.
Yeah, and I think the CEO, leader, whatever we're going to call him, has to be aware of what Things Create is doing. And so the next time he's at an office where one of the people just got a birthday thing or something, you can say, "How did you enjoy the bottle of wine?" Or, the free tickets to the Dodgers or
That
whatever.
is probably the most brilliant comment yet with our platform, because if you just use it for the automation and don't personalize it in some degree, it's still not truly thoughtful, right? You want to still be engaged. We're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor, Thanks Crate.
Giving gifts to your employees rocks. Forgetting gifts for your employees sucks. Employee appreciation boosts retention by 48%. But tracking the dates is tedious, finding gifts is overwhelming, and it's too easy for people to fall through the cracks. Thanks Crate makes employee appreciation easy, so you never forget another gift again. Simply connect your payroll provider to get all your employees, their birthdays, and milestones in one place. Book a call with a Thanks Crate gifting agent to design your employee appreciation plan so you can be the rockstar workplace that never forgets anyone. Thanks Crate. Book a call with your gifting agent now.
The company that founded us was Source Toad in Tampa. When Greg was talking to me when we acquired the company and took it over, he said, "Hey, one of the things that you don't want to lose is like the gifts are great, the messages are fine, but like I see the employees leave the card from their first year anniversary on their desk for 5 years." He was like, "Those things are really critical." So as we're talking about these types of things, so I mean, is this the type of thing that you think keeps employees there? I mean, you're talking about leadership, right? And that thoughtfulness that goes on the floor, knows every employee. Is that truly what it takes to keep employees there, or do you think it's a combination of things?
Well, one of the challenges with keeping good employees is a lot of companies say, well, I'm not going to invest in my employees because if they leave, then I haven't lost anything. Well, what happens is the good employees leave and the bad ones stay. So you have to have the willingness to say, I'm going to help this person as much as I can in their career. And if they want to go someplace else, good on them. I've done everything I can to help them get to this stage. You try and show them a way where they can keep growing in the company. But believe it or not, back to Sears, these two brothers, the Brennan brothers, were on their way to the top. And the younger one, Bernie, who was a friend of mine, and we worked together a couple places, realized he wasn't going to get the job. So he left. Fast forward about a decade, and Montgomery Ward's talking about old companies. Bernie was head of Montgomery Ward's, and his brother was head of Sears in Chicago. It was like the two retail
That's pretty
giants.
neat. That's like having two kids in the NFL. That's at that level.
Right. Right, and Bernie presided over the end of Montgomery Ward's, and his brother Ed left before Sears cratered. So if there's two guys, there's gonna be one head of sales, and there's two really good people that are going that direction. It's understandable that one of them might just say, "Hey, I know I'm not gonna make it, so I'm gonna go on to a bigger and better job." I What I recommend some companies do is as an alumni, have an alumni dinner every year where people come back, and I know one company that has done something similar to that. But occasionally that person that left, that's really good,
Mhm.
the grass is not greener over here. I want to come back, please. Let me come back.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've had that feeling myself, I'll admit it.
So that's culture once again. And trust. Trust. The absolute foundation of everything. Your business, your relationship with your family, the nation, your fellow citizens.
Yeah,
Critical.
I like that, and then, generationally, because you do bring up these organizations that we, a lot of us have heard of, but they are legacy organizations. Do you think that there's a transition generationally going on? I mean, because when I hear this, and I'll just frame with this, when I hear
Sure.
what you're saying is the most important piece of it, I still feel like that's probably the most important piece still, even as a new generation comes in, they still have to find ways of building trust. But you mentioned it earlier as well, remote employees, AI, all these things are coming into the environment. Are you seeing that generational change and how it's affecting leadership, or is it still the same problems in a different decade?
Somebody's got to turn the AI on and turn it off. What was the old joke about automation that there was a factory where everything was done automatically? There was a guy sitting there watching it, and then there was a dog next to him that would bite him if he touched anything.
Hmm.
So we still need human beings, and you will have a culture, and your culture will have an impact on your success long term.
What is your vision around the technology and, like, making more or less human kind of interaction or whatever that may be from a leadership side? Do you think it's
Well,
is your
yeah,
perspective it's in helping us or hurting us or
it depends on how the leader is going to bring it out. If the leader comes out and says, we're firing everybody tomorrow,
uh,
goodbye and good luck, that's not going to end well, typically. If you come out and say, we're going to retrain you, we're going to help you use this technology more effectively for the betterment of yourself and for us. Uh, if you have to cut people back, what I learned watching with a number of companies, my advice was if you're going to cut people back, do it once and do more than you think you need to. And then bring everybody together who's left and say, look, we had to cut back and you're all solid and we're going to go forward. And then over a period of months, they would bring some people back. I had another friend and member, they all become friends, had a $250 million business. It was a great business. And when when building went down and, it was at 08, 09, we kept telling them, cut, close that warehouse. No, 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 out of business. It's better to keep 50 people working and fire 50 than it is to not fire the 50 and have 100 people lose their job.
and that's what happened. So, I mean, even as we went through COVID, my last company, I made the wrong decision, right? I let people go slowly instead of enough to survive, and then we shut that company down eventually. But I think a lot of people don't know how to handle that necessarily the right way.
Well, it sounds heartless and brutal, but first, two things. One, the people you let go many times end up doing better if they're really good people and they're ambitious, and you save the other jobs versus trying to make everybody happy. If you try and please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody.
You think leadership is a lonely position? I mean, because I think back on those times and, people sometimes look at CEOs as like this invincible superhero force. And like, you're just another human that created a company and you're trying to make things work out, right? You're not invincible. But when those situations happen, most people don't understand that you have four decisions to choose from and they're all horrible. There's
Hmm.
just not a good decision to make. But I think you're talking more strategic. Do it once. You have to get through it, and then you make sure that once you've done it, you are now stable to have that time that you need to regroup the business and hopefully start to ramp it back up, which
Right.
you're cutting it quicker, and it's probably a really hard decision to make, but then you are more likely to save what you've kept together.
Right. I can remember putting on next to my desk when I was starting one of the small businesses. The issue is survival. So when I was sitting at the desk trying to make a decision, the enterprise had to survive.
Protect the entity at all costs. I always say that, like, at the end of
Yeah.
the day, we have to if the business doesn't go on, none of us survive.
Right.
So,
Right.
but yet one thing that having these conversations with you at lunch that I did. So, business is part of it, right? Where does it go outside of work? So, like, what should be expected of a leader that wants to be a good leader, right? It doesn't just happen in the workplace, though, right? You're big on community, you're big on doing other things. What is there advice to people on how to balance some of these things and not just always focus it, at the workplace?
Yeah. People, we're all pack animals and we do really want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Just a normal human behavior. It's the way we came out of the cave. And I think companies like, as you know, I'm on the board at Tampa Bay Watch and I go and do different projects, cleaning fishing line, making oyster reef balls. And usually there's a company there with 4 or 5 employees that are coming to volunteer. And it's part of their company culture is that you volunteer, 1 day a year or 2 days a year or 1 day every quarter. Maybe it's, the company goes and Thanksgiving and hands out turkeys. That's part of your culture. We came, we saw, we consumed is not a healthy attitude towards your society. If society isn't good, your business isn't going to be good. Leaving it better than you found it is huge. And so, yes, getting involved, volunteering, making it part of your company's routine and culture will actually bond people to the company with a stronger bond.
Now, if you could change one thing on the way companies treat people personally, you just see this consistent thing that companies do. You've consulted with a bunch of companies. What would that be for you? What would be the one thing if you said, hey, if you can do one thing to do something different, the way you treat your people, this would be it?
Take the time to get to know your people and what they want to accomplish in their life and help them accomplish it.
I love that. I'm going to throw you a curveball here. So when we met and you said that if every person could help another human, right? Can you
Right.
just explain that to us a little bit and how that would evolve?
Well, having traveled, I did 5 loops of the U.S. in my RV starting in 2020. And this year we're not. But our country is falling. I mean, I told you a statistic about trust, and it's neighbors don't trust each other. Organizations, there were studies done where, 80% of the people like colleges were really solid. Now it's less than 40%. I mean, it just goes on and on. So reconnecting as human beings, validate me. I think I shared with you that I wrote a poem, if you'll suffer through it.
I'd love to.
It's called Microvalidations. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. English proverb. Microclimates, microbiomes, microaggressions. We live in a microclimate. Microbiomes live in us. Microaggressions are part of life. What we need more of are microvalidations, microaffirmations. We've become trapped in our silos. We've become contemptuous of those who don't agree with us. They must not be human. Our country, our cities, our friends have become divided. We can't keep distancing ourselves from each other. We must all hang together. Most assuredly, we'll hang separately. Benjamin Franklin. Our children, our grandchildren need us to hang together for their future. A healthy democracy requires its citizens to work together to remain free. We need to see our interdependence and break down the barriers that divide us. We need each other. Start with micro validations. Open the door for someone and say hello. Talk to your neighbors. Look people in the eye and acknowledge that they exist. Reconnect with each other. Affirm the humanness in everyone. That's the key, is just seeing each other and walking in all these cities today. And it's even true in Florida now than it used to be. When you're walking down the street, people have their headphones on. They're looking at their phone. If you try and engage them, they turn. But every once in a while, when you engage somebody, they light up a Christmas tree because they go, wow, somebody sees me. I'm human. Just open the door for somebody. Ask them, can you help? Even, like checking out the register at the grocery store. How's it going today? Wow.
I couldn't said that any differently myself if I could speak as eloquently as you, Chip. But it amazes me because I have where I live, we have a little 4-mile walking trail, and 80% of my neighbors, hey, how are you doing? How's it going today? 20% of face to face won't even acknowledge that I just walked by them. And it deep down, it bothers me deeply. And like, I work with my children on this because they think I'm a wild person because everywhere I go, I talk to people because I just love human interaction. It's an art form that we should never lose. But
Yep.
that was so great to hear, Chip. Chip Webster, you're an amazing human, my friend. It's been a very big pleasure to speak with you today. Everyone should go check out Unity and Service. I'm going to finish reading this, give you my notes back. Chip, we couldn't appreciate you any more than we do. I think that the message you're trying to spread is one that needs to be heard. And I hope we get to have you on here again at some point.
Happy to help, Matt. We've got work to do together.
Like I
Break down
said,
those barriers.
the way I see it is that I told you when we were meeting, I see the U.S. to start with because I'm starting the U.S. market. And I see these little tiny lights starting to flash all over the country. And they're just little tiny positive reactions.
Mhm.
And it'll just keep sparking and sparking and sparking. And then someone gets I'm going to use my own company here. They get a thanks crate. And that brings them up in that day, right? And getting a gift helps with mental health and other things.
Sure.
Just these positive endorphins go off. That person gets excited. They go out. They may pay for coffee for someone behind them. That person gets that free coffee. They may hand out a $20 bill to someone that they may have looked at differently before because they were standing there in need of something. And I think any little positive spark that we can put into the universe right now is the most important that it's ever been. But Chip Webster, thank you so much. You've been a pleasure. I'd love to call you my friend, and hopefully we get to do this again.
Thank you, Matt.
All right. Take care.